Okay. Kia ora tātou. Kia ora, councillors. Thank you. Right. Just before we departed for your lunch break, we had just finished off discussing some of the narrative around the group of activities. We are now going to go into the levels of service. So we're starting off with delivering timely, efficient processing of consents and related requirements in line with statutory requirements. So the first two performance measures to that level of service remain unchanged. They are exactly what is in existence now. So what we're actually suggesting and proposing is for the building consent applications, instead of looking at code compliance certificates, we look at building consent applications processed within the statutory time frame, which I believe is 21 days. So 100% is the target that we're aiming for that. With resource consent processing within statutory timeframes, they are proposing to do a staggered target over the 4 years to reach up to 95%. So that's obviously been adapted due to not meeting the KPI now. So trying to make a more realistic target for what they actually have. So any views that you have on those two amended performance measures?
Mr. Cooper's looking at me funny.
Mr. Cooper's coming to the table.
I'm not convinced about, actually, we can't meet the target, so let's just drop it so we meet it. Kind of thinking. I know it's reality, and I know you're always doing the best we can, and I know there are many issues with resource consents, but I'm uncomfortable at going, actually 80% is okay.
And that's a perfectly logical approach, to have 100% there and we fall short of it. That's fine as well, as long as we can explain it and we're working towards it. So we can adopt either model, really, Councillor. I think we're currently just below 80%, hence the 80%. With the rearrangement of how we're delivering services, what I've said to the current manager and the incoming manager is that I expect a much higher level of service, because we've never done it this way before. With having two managers in the two halves of planning, I think it's only reasonable to expect that we're going to lift the level of service in that area. So that being the case, maybe these targets are a bit low.
I'm not going to die in a ditch on it, but I'd rather see it at 100%, but what does everyone else think? I don't know.
Just a question, the building control consent average processing time, is that 12 working days or just 12 days? It's all working days, okay, thanks. Shouldn't it say that?
Staff don't work Saturdays and Sundays to processing. We're a 5-day-a-week building operation. It's a funny number. You'd probably think you'd go 10 or 15, but...
So, Councillor Scott, if I was to take your suggestion, it is the second performance measure to say under 12 working days. Oh, sorry. Yes. Thank you. Yep. Again, we wouldn't die in a ditch over that word either, so it would be completely what council is comfortable with. The other thing around the stage targets for the resource consenting, there is a view of trying to make all the consenting consistent, so having the same target. So it is an easy argument that we're striving for 100%, because that's what we should be reaching legislatively speaking, and that we report by exception. And because there are system improvements being made, this seems like an opportune time that we just keep it with the existing rather than reducing the targets. Are you comfortable with that approach?
So that's only those that don't have a problem. That's those who don't require an RFI for further information, isn't it? I mean, what's the percentage of those? Where it's a very crude way of looking at what you're actually achieving in terms of that metrics, isn't it?
Yeah, we stopped the statutory clock for an RFI, so that's on them. So they're all in. Yeah. So if the quality of the application is low, obviously it'll take longer, but it still might be under the 20 days because you've stopped the clock while you wait for that information.
I'd probably just raise it because I think it's a bigger issue than just this council. And I think if we start accepting within this council that it's okay, yeah.
Thank you. We've noted that, and we're happy to go with that recommendation. Okay. Now we're talking about providing useful, timely, and consistent information and education on building, planning, and regulatory services. So there is a new performance measure around building and planning services about doing a wee bit, of outreach by providing the local community and industry with regular updates and information at least 4 times per year. Now, it doesn't say the mechanisms on how they provide that information, because that can be subject to whatever's available at the time. It could be at workshops, it could be guest presentations, it could be through direct email notifications, whatever. But it's just actually saying that they have a consistent stream of up-to-date and factual information to the community. So that's a new performance measure. Animal control, looking at dog control education to 1 school preschool organization per term. The 1 per term is really low because I know that Deb and her team exceed that incredibly already. But it's just something that they actually have to show that they're providing that service. So it was an amendment to the performing measure by actually quantifying it per term as opposed to just so many per year. The other one is a new one about information on the website. This is the council's website, is reviewed and updated quarterly for all regulatory activities. That, again, is a new performance measure. Ignore the pink color coding. That was for an internal question that we had to chase up, and we've rectified that. So that's talking about resource consenting and building control being able to actually have regular industry updates, and obviously with environmental health as well. So are you comfortable with those 3 measures, with the 2 new ones? Okay. It's a good, you're not going anywhere yet, sorry. It's good because that's also talking about the enabling that Councillor Piddington was talking about earlier, by providing that information and outreach to the community. Okay, supporting responsible dog ownership, and that's talking about the percentage of known dogs in the district are registered, because it's hard to know how many you don't know about unless they come through the registration. So that we can't get to 100%, obviously. So 95% is the existing one. No proposal to change that. now we're coming down to ensuring swimming pools and food and liquor premises are certified safe and comply with the legislation. So we've changed the performance measure to actually talk about the percentage of residential swimming pool fencing in the district are audited at least once every 3 years. And what we're actually talking about is actually having all the fences reviewed at least once every 3 years. That's the amendment to that performance measure. No change to the percentage of scheduled audits of registered food premises. And
Why can't we do 100% of that one there, of scheduled audits of registered food premises completed?
Sometimes we can't get compliance from particular operators, and they need more time, and they don't come within that period. So we can't have 100%, because it's not within our control. But with a willing operator, it is, and we do get them, yeah.
then we have the number of alcohol-regulated premises that have been inspected. So what we've done is we've moved away from a percentage to an actual number. And it's just to, pardon me, instead of actually having a specific target, it is just saying that we'll report on the numbers that we have visited. Are you comfortable with that different approach?
Will we have a comparison, or will we still report a percentage, or a number is totally irrelevant when reported on its own?
It's a bit erroneous, isn't it, when it's just a number?
We could give a number of the total, which is effectively a percentage. But
Which is just a fraction.
I think, but I think the change has been brought about by, ordinarily when we have a performance measure, it is, council is 100% in control of it. We're not, we're a tri-agency. So we work with community public health and we work with the police. And what we've found in the previous sort of 18 months, 2 years, is that as a tri-agency, we've been unable to do a lot of that work. So our numbers were low. We're now trying to, or putting pressure on our partners to have more resource or more availability so that we're actually more coordinated. And when they go out on their own, they don't do that anymore. We go as a tri-agency so we can actually build up this number, because it dropped back in the last couple of years. Post-COVID in particular. So we're trying to recover from the COVID period, I suppose is what it is, but it's a realistic target, and that's what the team are trying to achieve, is something that's realistic and not beyond our control.
How many have we got actually alcohol places are there? I had a feeling it was something like 28 total.
Yeah, it's several hundred across the 3 districts that we look after. Yeah, because we do look after Waimate and Mackenzie as well.
Just a comment, I can understand the tri-agency with alcohol, but as far as the food safety stuff, that wouldn't have the issues associated with police not being able to attend, so that should be, it should be higher. I mean, that's our role to regulate food safety, so I think that's important that there is a number associated in some shape or form.
We could have 100%, but as I said, it's based on a willing operator, and I'd say higher than 90% are, but you'd be surprised that there are quite a few that give us pushback, and we don't necessarily get that audit when we need to, and we have to take further actions to get compliance one way or another.
You can't have obviously highly conflicted, but I think you've got to have a really high standard And if people aren't, you know, making the time to be audited, then they shouldn't have a licence. They should be operating.
We have that sort of delicate conversation with those operators.
Yeah, I know. But it needs to
But
be
no,
done.
we'd be happy, I'm sure the team would be happy to put 100%, and because it's a target after all, and it's also about messaging to the community that, you know, we want 100% safety if we can get it.
If you've given someone a timeline to meet certain criteria and it crosses over a financial year, then you've set yourself up for failure. So there's going to have to be a percentage in there that won't be audited within a specific time. Is that correct? Yeah, absolutely. And that could be 5%, but there's always going to be that few, so you're setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah, all I'm saying is you don't want a soft standard.
So should we raise it to 95%? Because it's a midway point, it still allows for that fraction that you're never going to meet because of the crossover over financial years, or do you want 100% and we just report by exception?
Yeah.
Then you get into a position of changing the words. So you could have percentage of scheduled audits of registered food premises completed, and then you could add on or working towards, because you might have, out of
Okay.
say 100, you might have 95 done and 5 are in a process and they go over, you know what I mean? So we'd like sort of, what are we trying to achieve here? You could have 100%, but 5 of them just haven't quite completed an audit.
That's right. And when you have
Okay, and now we're actually talking about the council's responsibilities for regulating the management of EQPs, earthquake-prone buildings, and we're talking about the percentage of potential non-priority earthquake-prone buildings identified by July 2027, and we're saying by year 3 that will be 100% to make it compliant. It's a new performance measure, just to reflect the legislation.
Sorry, Vince, I missed a question, just to skip back one. Is there a reason why you changed from building warranted fitnesses to just specifically swimming pools and food and liquor premises? Because there's a whole lot of other buildings out there that require warranted fitnesses. Are you just not going to check them, which I'd be 100% happy about, but what is the plan for them?
our regime for a building warrant of fitnesses is that once every 3 years, every building is inspected physically. So I believe that's what we're trying to achieve in terms of, so it's not 100% every year, it's 30%, and we do every building every 3 years.
But we've removed any performance measure for the other buildings that require building of warranted fitnesses. For the WAFs, yeah.
So we could add a performance measure that actually says that every building, once every 3 years?
If that's what we do, I'd be happy with that, because otherwise there's just a whole group of buildings out there that have some regulation around them that we're just ignoring.
Yep.
Yeah. I haven't got that detail at the top of my head. I could go away and come back to you, councillor. I'm happy to
Yeah,
do
no,
that.
I'm not so concerned about what the measure is, so long as we've got some kind of measure in there, because at the moment they've just they've fallen off the radar.
Okay.
Yep, it sounds very feasible that we could develop something.
Yep.
Okay. You stop doing that. Sorry? Only the ones with WAFs, building warrant of business. Oh. Yes,
Yes, it is.
council has to actually keep the register of all earthquake-prone buildings in the district. not just the ones it owns. It needs to know about all the other ones under legislation.
And we are up to date with that. So it's just, we're compliant with legislation, so we've got a wee ways to go in terms of beyond priority routes, what those earthquake-prone buildings look like. But we are compliant with legislation up to date. So this is just a progression of that.
So, because then you've got measure, so you've got percentage of potential non-priority earthquake-prone buildings. So have we identified?
They have to provide
Difference between-
a DEE, so they have to provide a detailed engineering evaluation to actually identify the earthquake-prone strengthening. So the council keeps a register of all of those for all buildings,
Yeah.
and that will identify the ones that are the priority earthquake-prone and the ones that are non-priority, which means they have longer time to remedy. Because we have to keep track.
Okay, so we've identified all the earthquake-prone buildings in our district, step one,
That are on a
So-
priority route.
on a priority route, and then the next step is to,
Do the non-priority ones.
and get them on a pathway.
So there's a 12.5-year deadline for the priority, one of those on a priority route, and I think it's 25 years for the non-priority routes.
I think it goes from 25 to 35, doesn't it? It varies depending on where they fit in the assessment, so. But responsible for ensuring that they all get their earthquake-prone buildings up to code through the building inspections, so, yeah. It's just about getting our house in order and making sure we have our registers up to date, really. Okay? So are we comfortable with those? Great. Now we come to the funding impact statement. Now you will note that there is debt funding in years 1 and 2 that are significantly higher. That's to do with the district plan review, okay, because we do borrow for that. It's a very significant piece of work that lasts 15 years. So that explains that CapEx for the first few years. Yeah. Okay. Are there any questions about any of the rest of it? Okay. Moving on, now we get to the fun stuff, corporate activities. This is the machinery that keeps the organization going behind the scene. Okay, so corporate activities captures a lot of the, it captures all of the internal functions within the organization. So we have our stock standard issues around the recruitment and retention of staff, increased demand to meet the legislative requirements, particularly in some of the areas around health and safety, risk and insurance, et cetera. Keeping pace with the changing legislation, because there's a lot of it that covers it, and of course the changing technology, pace with that. The priorities identified, keeping in mind that most of these activities don't do activity management plans because they are internally facing, but through conversations with project managers, activity managers, and what's been identified in their work programs through the budgeting, it's looking at implementing business system improvements, meeting the customer's expectations, and meeting legislative deadlines and requirements. So those are the 3 priorities for most of the internal activities within the council. Any comments on any of those 3 points? Okay. Okay. So looking at the FIS statement for corporate activities, and You'll note that when we're looking at the debt funding for the first few years, of course, that is about offsetting the deficit, looking at paying interest rates, depreciation, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. Any questions about that? Okay. Now we're going to recreation and leisure. So these are your community facilities, the cultural and learning facilities like the art gallery halls, the Theatre Royal, the museum, and the libraries. Of course, there is the increasing demand there, increased community expectations, the rising costs for maintenance and repair, aging infrastructure, including some earthquake-prone buildings amongst this, which require refurbishment or renewals, and the impacts of new technology on systems and processes for some of these things. So, of course, we know what the main priorities are. It's about the rebuilds of the Theatre and Heritage Center, the stadium, art gallery extension, replacing the roof on the Timaru Library, and the refurbishing and rebuild of Temuka Library. Now, the Temuka Library has been moved out, I think, of this 10-year plan. Is that right? The Temuka Library rebuild's been pushed out, so I can take that off of the priority list.
The Temuka Library part of our earthquake-prone building program, wasn't it a priority one?
This was an 8 million new facility, so the earthquake-prone
Share
work, we
with
looked at
Plunket.
separately.
Okay, so but have we allowed for strengthening the current one, or we're not planning to build a new one?
We're not sure yet.
Okay, looking at the service levels for this group of activities. So the first level of service is talking about recreation and leisure facilities, programs, and materials are accessible to residents and visitors. So for the museum, what we've done is we've made amendments to the targets because, of course, they've been going through a rebuild phase post-COVID. And that was about the number of service users, including the visitors, the attendees on site, and their off-site programs when they do outreach, and looking at information or collection requests, because Philip does get a number of those. So for year one, he's looking at 15,000, escalating it in year two, year three, and then year four onwards. I do believe he based these targets on having an operational heritage center for year two, which is why it doubled. So we may look to adjust those so it's a more staged approach to align with the heritage center build. Okay. So the next performance measure.
I've got a question, sorry, because you're going so fast, so I need to get all my sheets of paper out. Art gallery extension, we said no to that, so why is it a priority? So once again, so you're saying it's a priority, but we chopped it, so.
Okay. Yep.
Oh.
We can move that out. Okay, so back to the performance measures. So we've combined the two about public programs and events with the number. So we're looking at the number of exhibitions and events. Again, in a building up phase, going from 2 to 4 to 8 ongoing. Okay, so we've amended the targets on there. Looking at the number of community group or local non-profit uses and hires annually, year one was 0, year two, 10, year three, 20, and then 35 ongoing. That is a new performance measure, again, based on the assumption that there would be an operational heritage center by year 2. So we may defer those by a year, depending on the,
Sorry, just going back to the museum users. Sorry, it just took me a while to find the figure I was looking for. Year 1, 15,000, and you talked about a post-COVID rebuild, but the 2023 calendar year, we had 26,000 visitors. So why would we only have 15,000 in year 1?
I have no idea. Tony,
Is
do you know
that
why he did that?
contemplating big, with the building and the shifting?
An impact on them.
Okay.
And keeping in mind that exhibitions will actually pause during that period of time as well, so full access to the facility during those moves won't be available.
First year it won't be built, so
Yeah.
I would have thought you'd keep your targets high.
We can amend them.
It is noted in the column that measures and targets adjusted based on what's sort of indicated.
Oh.
Similarly, there aren't measures and targets for the Theatre Royal because those will be developed once, as a result of
The level of service for the theater and Heritage Center, obviously, or for the theater specifically, is that you're providing a facility that can offer services for the performing arts. So that's your level of service, but your targets we can't determine yet.
And once you do your operational plan,
Then you can set your
build
targets.
your,
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Right.
going back,
Sure.
but won't we have that? So this is, we should have all of that information within the next 3 or 4 weeks, because we should have our completed detailed design.
Mm-hmm.
So our operational plan must be working in line with that.
Mm-hmm.
So we will actually be able to put some stuff in here.
And we'll be able to actually put it in prior to it going out for
Oh, yeah,
consultation,
perfect, okay.
provided all of that sticks to time, yeah. So, great. Okay, then looking at the recreation and leisure facilities, programs and materials are accessible to residents and visitors again. Looking at your library targets, no changes to 3 out of 4, and the library issues has decreased from 550,000 to 500,000. I don't know the rationale behind that.
just previous targets were, previous results were 500,000, 515. So it's really adjusting to reflect the actual level of service that is currently provided because
They're extraordinarily high numbers for the size of your community. So you have a very well-read and cultured community, I will say that. Okay. Your art gallery, it's the visitors to the art gallery, again, amending the targets to show the staged approach, and I think that's whilst the work is underway for the earthquake strengthening. I notice there's a lot of building stuff out by the art gallery when you drive by it at the moment, so I think it's just a reflection of the works underway. Okay? However, to compensate,
By year 3, we still don't have the same target as what it currently was. So you had year 1 to 3, we originally had 19,000, and by year 3, we're only making 10,000. And so it's not till year 4, we raise our target by 1,000 people.
and
Feels like we're not stretching ourselves.
I think it's because isn't the work being phased over the next couple of years? I don't know.
Not the seismic, no, there's got nothing.
Seismic will be completed by the end of the financial year.
So
Okay, we'll go back to
But
Cara.
the extension is no longer a
That's not
priority, so
happening.
that's not moving ahead. So
No.
without the extension, you don't have the additional exhibition space, so we just don't have the capacity. So these are more accurate reflections.
Can I be I'll be a bit of a pain and go back to the library. So we say we're going to get 200,000 visitors to the libraries, which is, on 365 days, is over 500 a day. Is that real? Do we actually meet that? There's community libraries. Yeah, but even
You've
those.
got service centres, yeah, and then you'll have,
And the online searches, 400,000, that means there's 1,000 a day. Over 1,000 searches on our library a day.
Your libraries are your star.
Yeah, but I would have thought people would just use Wikipedia or something else.
no, digital access now,
It's just
see a
surprising.
significant increase, yeah.
No, I don't think so.
Might need to get yourself a library card in.
And even the issues, that's over 1,000 a day, books issued.
Yeah.
No wonder spend 431,000 buying books.
And you get a lot of,
Wow.
to be honest, your libraries, you get the biggest bang for your buck because they are always the stars in the resident survey and all the public feedback.
And our fees are good enough? Carry on.
Do you want to start charging for overdue books again?
When you take your small children to the library, you get out 10 books because every year ring one, read one of them. I still do that. Get 10 books out and don't even read one. I'm a great stat.
You're not even in our district.
It's good to have
I've
targets.
got a library card, so stick that up, yeah.
Oh.
Jaxie. Well-educated person around this table because I go to the library.
After speaking with some of the librarians, they actually provide quite a few just basic social services to the elderly. I know people, the oldies get their new cell phone, they need things done, they need their banking app loaded on. There's all sorts of stuff that they do.
They're an essential part of your social fabric, really.
Which is why they're protected under legislation.
So maybe a little bit off topic, but you were thinking about a social worker kind of role in there. Has that moved forward at all?
Given our current financial situation with our OPEX, it's not, has not been prioritised.
But when you get to Seabay, even that, there's 822 people a day go to Seabay.
Yeah.
I just find that astonishing.
Your gym, yes, your gym access, your swimming pools, a lot of the school kids that are coming through on a daily basis as swim squads.
822. Wow.
Somebody obviously goes on a regular basis.
Now, being a regular user, it's actually busy all the time. I mean, you go there at 6 o'clock in the morning and the car park's chocker and it's just all go, yeah.
Yeah.
No, but there's a difference between Seabay and the gym, isn't there?
Yeah.
Yes, yes. But we also have about 1,300 members as well, so that's, we're at a point where we're almost peaked.
Sorry?
We have 1,300 members, or close to 1,300 members of the gym itself as well.
No, what I'm trying to say is the gym's quite a different function to the pool.
Yes, but they are
This
all
sort of
members.
mixes the two of them up.
Yeah. So it's an aggregate figure.
So one of the things I want to note with the library targets is that because of the reduced foot traffic, they've compensated for that with the online searches and media interactions and the community programs. They're doubling the number of community programs that they're going out rather than having people come to the site.
I think we're over 500,000, so we don't need to sweat it too much, eh?
Number is a good indication of what your priorities are when it comes to your services and your community stuff you're offering.
Sorry.
I'll suggest.
Sorry, Councillor Booth, could you repeat that, please?
It's the numbers that are involved with the people who are frequenting the facilities. It's a good indication of what our priorities should be in regard to what gets what.
Just on the community pools, I think they should be separate targets for each pool, not combined, because Geraldine might go gangbusters and we get no one at point. We need to know, because they all cost X amount, we need to have our fingers on each of the pools, not a combined community total, if that makes sense.
So that's something that we can look at in terms of separating that out. Previously, we haven't been able to really accurately collect that data, but we are moving forward to doing that now.
It stuns me people can't count to 10 as they come in.
We didn't have the correct technology to make sure that we were accurately counting.
You get my point though, we need to make sure they're all being used at an acceptable level for what they cost.
So I can assure you that we are collecting that data now. In terms of actual standalone figures, if you'd like that accounted for in our targets, then we can do that.
Okay. Right, moving on to CBAY, because I am acutely aware in 10 minutes we have John Mackey from Audit joining us. So moving on to CBAY, I think for the most part, you've seen some minor amendments to some of those targets down there, and then the fitness memberships and the participant numbers, those are new measures being put in. Sorry. Participant.
400
Okay. We changed the focus of that target, so instead of it being about our outputs, it was about the users of our services. Okay.
Just a question regarding the CBAY Fitness participation numbers. How do you propose to capture that? Because I understand they have a band, but not everyone swipes their band. What means are you going to be able to capture the participation?
We, I don't know if you had that conversation with Mike, but yeah. Yeah. So the new gates that will be installed will be, you'll have to swipe to be able to get in, so more accurately account for that as well.
Okay. Moving on to the facilities meeting legislative safety requirements, that's standard as is, no change. The art gallery has amended its exhibitions due to the capacity issues that Beth has just mentioned. No change to the conservation or the museum's collection items available that are online. And then we're getting down to our parks level of service. So we're talking about parks and recreational open spaces are accessible for residents and are maintained and developed to meet current and future community needs. We've actually amended the wording and the targets to actually reflect more accurately of what's actually out there. So we slightly reduced the park and recreational open space hectares per 1,000 residents, but we have increased the kilometers of the walking and biking tracks to reflect the new developments that have actually happened. So, any comments on those?
And the art gallery, sorry, back to the other page, but you see we've amended the targets, but what were the targets?
The collections, the art gallery collections?
My apologies.
No, exhibitions.
Oh.
So they were 13, but they've been actually because they've achieved 16 and 18 over the previous years. So
Yeah, wonderful. They've never had one. They should have one. one of the things that has been identified is that your stadium has no level of service or KPIs, and it should have some. So it was suggested that they have some, but I think Mike hasn't put them in as of yet. But we have advocated that you should be measuring the use of your stadium.
And we can do that as well by implementing Bookable, which is part of the next phase for the stadium, so that way we can actually measure how many bookings there are for community sports.
Right, now,
Well, that was too hard to work out because of bookings, your major bookings, like netball books for a certain amount of days per season, basketball, so I would have thought it was quite a quick, easy exercise for a manager to do.
We can moving forward, we just historically haven't. Can't tell you why.
What's the point in the Parks and Rec open space hectares per 1,000? Why do we have a target on that?
it's something that's actually in the district plan and also in their parks policy. So it's a council-created target for the parks policy, which you can change. But I think in the district plan that there is specification about recreational spaces within so many meters and based on population base.
So is that why we have over 300 hectares of parks?
Could be a contributing factor.
My understanding is there has to be a park within 800 metres of each other, or something like that.
A recreational space, it does,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why we've got this. Yeah. I was just talking to Bill last week about it, and that's what he. Yeah.
So many hectares.
There is some sort of parameter there that says that they have to be so many.
Give it a playground, so with the size of the room versus the hectare.
it's not a legislative requirement, it's more a self-imposed policy statement from the council, yeah. So group of activities, recreation and leisure, you can actually see, obviously, the first 2 years, what the big spends are on that. And then smoothed out, so operational funding, it's pretty straightforward.
Sorry, just a question on recreation and leisure. So we have 90 Ks at the moment, do we, of off-road and walking and biking tracks? So we're not going to get caught with, you said you're going to increase that when we have no budget for it. So it should just be maintained, rather than maintained and developed. Okay.
There is still an ongoing program to, I guess, continue to develop them, but yeah, the budgets have been reduced for the next 3 years quite significantly in that area, so.
But that's my point, Andrew.
Yeah.
It should be maintained for the next 3 years.
Yeah.
And then looked at.
Well, I think that's what the target is, isn't it? 90K? Yeah, 90K maintained, yeah.
Yeah, but you've also got and developed, which says to me you're going to do more than maintain. So I'm just saying it should be maintained for 3 years to meet our budget.
Yeah, well, we also get vested assets, particularly around your park, with the off-road. So, particularly through Centennial Park, where the Mountain Biking Club do make tracks, and then they vest them to us effectively to look after. So, our asset does increase over time, but we're not actually spending the money to develop those in the first place.
I guess if I know I'm being a pain in the ass, but if I read that, it actually says we're going to develop, which we're not going to do. We're just going to maintain the ones that are gifted and maintain our existing.
That's right.
We can take out developed.
Thank you.
Yeah, that'd be the easiest way.
We've still got the contestable funding, which wouldn't say we're developing, but we're still supporting development by having funding in there. I get Councillor Puddington's point, but maybe a different word that, yeah.
Yeah, Yeah, because we do have that.
No, I get you. Yeah.
You guys said you were gonna-
Have we been vested the Point 1 yet? Pleasant Point Cycleway?
The which one, sorry?
The Pleasant Point Washdyke one?
Yes, we have,
We have,
yes, yep. And then, of course, we'll pick up the Pleasant Point Cave section, yeah. There's also that $100,000 a year contestable fund that we give to community groups, yeah. And again, they build them, and we then maintain them thereafter.
Okay, councillors, I'm conscious of the time, so if we can just look at the funding impact statement, and then we can pause, and we will move to the Audit New Zealand presentation and pick up where we left off. If anybody has any questions about the funding impact statement, you can either ask it now or make note of it, and we can come back. Is John online? Okay. Right. I don't know, as long as the pizza's through. Yeah, I'll pause. Okay. Can we please pull up the Audit New Zealand and get John online?
Sorry, where are we at? Just got a question.
We're waiting for John Mackey from Audit New Zealand, who is online waiting to join us. I beg your pardon? As long as you need him. But, we've allocated an hour. It shouldn't take that long, but it depends on really the level of questions. He has a presentation he's going to go through to explain the whole audit process.